Hello everyone, my name is Daisy and I will be talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, its triggers, and its symptoms. So I want to start off with a quote by an Army veteran named Daniel Summers, who said, "I am left with basically nothing, too trapped in a war to be at peace, too damaged to be at war," which I think really struck with me about how conflicting and challenging PTSD can be and how it can alter one's life. So I'm going to be discussing their triggers and the symptoms, and then just basically what post-traumatic is. So what is post-traumatic stress disorder? First, it's a mental health problem that people develop after witnessing or experiencing something traumatic as military combat, sexual assault against someone or against themselves, and just like if they're in a traumatic event such as like being trapped in a fire or involved like in a school lockdown, shooting type of stuff like that. So that's what it is. It's just a mental health problem that is caused by a traumatic event in that person's life. So when you are in the military, it's almost a guarantee that you will come back out of it with PTSD just because of everything that you see, the war, the experience, how traumatic boot camp can be at times, or just anything involved in the military. So often those experiences will lead you to PTSD. And I do have a statistics that says 7 out of 100 veterans, which is 7%, will come out of military combat with PTSD. Now, the positive news that I like to see the bright side of things is that yes, you can overcome PTSD, but it's not a specific timeline on when you will be done with PTSD. So for some people, it's within a few weeks. However, it could occur for months or even years at a time. So if you leave it untreated, it will last you your whole lifetime. Now that I have discussed what PTSD is, I will talk about its triggers. So first, I'm going to talk about what a trauma trigger is. And it's just a reminder of something that traumatic has happened in your life, or something that reminds you of that traumatic event that you have experienced. So this can be anything external, which can be like a place, a person, or like an environment type of stuff, or it can be something internal, like a thought or a feeling. And then they both lead to intense emotional and physical reactions when you have these sort of triggers. So one that I want to talk about is loud noises, which is more common in Army vets, which is anything that could be like a loud bang, even fireworks, just anything that's super loud that for regular civilians would scare us more because we didn't expect it coming. But for veterans, it's more like a trigger to like it reminding them of something that has happened. So when something like that is triggered in a veteran PTSD, they struggle to control their emotions. I've read sometimes where a loud noise can trigger a Army veteran into thinking they're back into the war, and they get really violent and aggressive because in their mind they're back in the war, reliving everything. And that loud noise wasn't a bang or a book that fell, it was a gunshot. So that can trigger some life-altering actions from the person suffering from PTSD. Another trigger that correlates to PTSD is certain smells, which I never thought that could correlate to PTSD because I always thought it was just more like people, places, and like noises and stuff. So certain smells can have a person with PTSD relive that experience. A good example is if you have PTSD from being in a burning building, the smell of the smoke can trigger that response of you being back in that building and having your fight or flight instincts kick in. So all these triggers will lead the person going back into reliving the most hard experience that they've ever been in, which is very triggering and also very sad to like hear about and like witness. So now that I have discussed the PTSD triggers, next I will talk about their symptoms. So I just want to give a little background about the symptoms first of all. So the symptoms of PTSD usually last within 3 months of the traumatic event that has occurred. However, they can occur longer and just be there for a much longer time. Let's see. They have to be unrelated to like medication, so you can't get a symptom based off like a medicine that you received, or if you're using like substances abuse, it doesn't really qualify under a symptom. It just has to be something that has occurred after you experience that traumatic experience. So one symptom of PTSD, which is very common again in Army vets, is flashbacks. Flashbacks, which are basically just them reliving the experience of that said traumatic experience, which is very common in Army vets. So many Army vets will have nightmares, flashbacks of everything they experienced in the military, in the war, which now leads to them having triggers with like the loud noises or certain like smells. Another symptom is that most people tend to self-isolate, and that is most common in sexual abuse victims. They will tend to isolate from people, their family, their friends, and just be by themselves and just not interact anyway socially. So that's another symptom of PTSD, which I think both are super important because obviously the flashbacks have a more triggering response. They bring out more of an action in you, whereas self-isolation just kind of damages you inside because you're more alone. You don't want to be around anybody. You just want to be by yourself. So I want to emphasize that post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition. It is triggered by witnessing or experiencing something traumatic in your life, and most commonly is known by having triggers of loud noises, smells, and can result in you having flashbacks or just wanting to be by yourself. These impacts seriously impact people's life. It's very hard to get over and it's very challenging. However, I want to leave with this quote. PTSD does not mean you are broken. It merely means you were put to the test and you didn't fall apart. Thank you.